You just loaded up TM Talk, the one pod to learn it all. I'm Professor Tommy.
And I'm Professor Ashley. Whether you're new to the Pokémon TCG or a seasoned trainer, we're here to help you level up your play, master the rulings, and grow your community one episode at a time.
Hello and welcome to TM Talk. So glad for you to join us today. My name is Professor Tommy.
I'm Professor Ashley.
And I am so excited today to talk about our episode. Something I think near and dear to our hearts, because before we were professors and even today, we're still competitive players. And we want to talk about what you should do or what are the steps you should take to become a competitive player yourself. So it's going to be from everything from where you get started to how can you get on your journey to be the very best like no one ever was. So we're really super excited about that. But before we get started into that, just want to ask you, Ashley, how's your week been so far? How's everything going?
My week has been pretty good. It's been busy, just like always. I didn't get to play a whole lot of Pokemon this week, so I was kind of sad. But sometimes other duties come first.
Yeah.
But hopefully next week I'll be able to play a little bit more. How about your week? How's it been?
Same. It's been pretty busy. Still dealing with the broken down car and driving back and forth to the city to try to fix that up. So that's been taking out my Pokemon time for sure. But exciting time this week because the new set came out, Pokemon Black and White. So those are really cool. That was awesome to see. I know a lot of our players at our league have gone and picked up some things from the set, try to get some cards, trying to update their decks to what's new in this format, and looking forward to the world formats.
Have you gotten open any of it yet?
I did.
Oh.
I got a poster collection because I was like, let me get the best of both worlds. It comes with 2 packs from each of the sets, white and black.
Mm-hmm.
Opened them up. I really didn't get too much out of them from what I got, but I was able to trade with somebody at League for some Genesect EXs because
yes.
might have some Golden Go coming down our way here pretty soon. So might jump back into that deck. So pretty fun with that. And then this weekend's been really busy. We did League, of course, and then I had to drive, like I said, to Oklahoma City to deal with our car one more time. But then today, for those of you who don't know, I'm on 12 acres, so I do a little homestead out here. I have about 50 chickens out here, and I was told today by my farmhand / kids that we are out of chicken food, so I had to drive up to Kansas for like 2 hours one way, get some chicken food, come back down right before we record this episode. So that was fun. But I did, on my drive, I did get to listen to Uncommon Energy podcasts. This is not a advertisement, but I do recommend them. So Uncommon Energy, they talk about kind of like what's going on in the TCG news today with regionals and different events that happen and things like that. But this episode they just had an interview with Henry Chow, who, if you don't know who Henry Chow is,
he's an amazing Gardevoir player.
Yes, look him up. This guy is amazing. He's actually won 3 regionals this year alone, and did a crazy run into NAIC in 2024 season. And it was actually talking about his journey into the competitive scene because he actually played when he was a kid, stopped for about 10 years, and then when he started seeing people he played with in the junior and senior division now doing well on Masters and streaming like on NAIC and in Worlds, it kind of put the fire in him again to be competitive, dust off the Pokemon cards and get back into the competitive scene. And it's pretty interesting to me because he kind of like came back into it as like almost a new player, shared his tips and tricks about what he did to get himself up to a competitive level and kind of get there. And I think it was really awesome to hear that, and kind of spun my wheels about how can we help you all start off with playing some Pokemon. So I mean, as we dive in, Ashley, what is the very first thing anybody should do if they want to go become a competitive TCG player?
One of the very first things you need to do is you need to make sure that you have a player ID. This is going to show Pokemon who you are for every single event that you attend that is an official Pokemon event. Do you need it for your league challenges, your league cups, the regionals, internationals, the special championships, free releases? You need it for pretty much any type of official Pokemon event. It is very, very important. So how you get that is you just go to Pokemon.com, you create your trainer club account, and you'll get a free player ID that links to your tournament history, points, and rankings. Or if you have a local league, you could just go there and say, hey, I don't have a player ID. Can you give me one? Because all of your local leagues should have those on hand.
Definitely, for sure. It's your Pokemon social security number, right?
Yeah.
That's how Pokemon tracks you. Big Pika will track you down with your player ID, but it is awesome. That's how you track, like Ashley said, all your accomplishments during your season, and you'll be able to see how well you've done throughout the time. But also, throughout the season, it tracks your best finish limits for your cups and challenge, and also for your regional special events and ICs, and also makes you eligible to compete in the competitive format. So as we're looking down that, so what does a season look like for Pokemon, especially the TCG, Ashley?
So your TCG season, it starts in July and it ends in May. Those are whenever everybody holds their challenges and their cups. Most of the regionals are there, and all of the ICs minus NAIC, because it's typically held in June. So that is the only event that's usually in June. And June is known as pretty much the dead month, where there's not a whole lot going on unless they come up with something new. Like this past season, we got to hold an event every single week in June, and they sent us cool prize packs and some cool promos to hand out, and we got to choose whatever format that we wanted to play. So that was actually really cool. But typically your season is July to May, and then Worlds in August.
Yes.
And that pretty much just ends the season.
Yeah, so it might be a little wonky because they have Worlds for the last season, right? Almost at the very beginning of the start of the new season. But that is, just so you understand, July through May is where you can collect your points to qualify yourself to get to Worlds. And then also in June for the NAIC, North America International Championships, you can also get points from there. After NAIC in June, that is it for points to get qualified for that Worlds, which will happen in August. And then if you were your very best, then you will get an email from Pokemon inviting you to the Worlds Championship, wherever they're hosting it. So that's pretty awesome. So let's talk about, Ashley. We talked about points. So how do we get, what should we be looking for as far as points if we're trying to qualify for Worlds?
So if you're wanting to qualify for Worlds, you really need to go to your league challenges, your league cups. Those are going to be your local events. They don't have as many points, but you can still get points. I believe it's 15 points for first place in a challenge, and it's 50 for a cup in first place. If you want to look at the other ones, you can always go to championship.pokemon.com to look at all of the other, because some of them have kickers. You'll have to check those out. And then you can go to regionals and your ICs and special championships to get points. And if I remember correctly, internationals is 500 championship points for first place. And I believe
for regionals
is the same.
It's 350. 350 points for first place for both regionals and special championships. So there's tons of ways to earn points in the season, but there are some kind of cap limits, right? Mm-hmm. So those are what we know as BFLs, or best finish limits. So Ash, you want to break those down for our listeners?
So our best finish limits are for your local challenges and cups, you can max out at 4 each. So if you get 4 first place challenges, it's going to use those. If you have 2 first place, a third place, and a fourth place, it's going to use those as your top. So if you went to 10 different league challenges, it's only going to use your top 4, whatever your best finish limit was on there. Same with the cup. It's going to pick your best 4 cups that you played in, and it's going to use those as your points.
Yep. And then for regionals, special championships, and ICs, you get shared a total of 5 for your best finish limits. So you can go to 5 regionals, and those could be your 5 best. Or if you go to regional, special championships, and ICs, and then combination of those, the 5 best will be picked for your best finish limits from that. So all that together will equal up your points for the season. And then from there, they actually break down who's going to come to, or who's going to get invited to Worlds. So these points matter because in America, the top 135 in Masters gets invited to Worlds. If you're a senior, it's the top 100. And then juniors is the top 80 get invited to Worlds. And then also, too, if you ever win a regional, if you win an IC, or if you top 4 in IC,
top 4,
and you win a regionals or a special championship, you also get automatically invited to the Worlds as well. And those don't get passed down, which what that means is that if the person who won regionals already has an auto invite, the second place person does not get that auto invite. It goes straight to the first player. This year, they did do where if a player got an auto invite and they were within the top, it was 125 this year.
Yep.
If they're within the top 125, then they would just jump down to the next person in point order for an invite. So I don't know if they're going to do that again this year. They haven't really specified that. I would assume they would. But definitely check out championships.pokemon.com to get the latest on that and to figure out where exactly do you need to fall to be invited to that Worlds trip. All right, so we already broke down a little bit about Pokemon Player ID, what you can do to find your points, what do points mean. So how do we start earning points? Where do we go? How do we find these events?
So you go to the Pokemon event locator at events.pokemon.com. That is going to be your best friend for finding local events. You just type in whatever city you're in, and you can change the radius. So if you only want to go 10 miles, you can change it to that. If you want to go 100 miles, you can change that. And it is very cool because you have all those different filters. Because if you want to just look for league challenges, you can click the one that says league challenge, and it will only pull those up for the radius, which is very, very nice.
For sure. Yeah. And definitely is a great way to find those challenges and cups, but also to find your local league, support your local game stores, your local leagues, go and join up with them, because that's where you can get your practice in, right? You can start playing against other players in that league and then start learning the rules about that, learning the rules from each other, from those professors that are at those leagues, and then also reading the tournament handbook and the TCG rule book specifically. Read those, understand how those rules work, because really that's going to separate you from those other players. It's going to make you get to that step just above, where if you understand those rules really well, you will definitely have a leg up when you're playing in any single match that you're playing with. So once we understand those rules, and we found our leagues, we found our events, what is it like to go to a Challenger or a Cup, Ashley?
So if you've never been to one, and you have no idea how it is for a first, that was how I was. I walked into a league challenge and I had no idea what I was doing. So I just had to ask. You just ask around, because the players there are always going to help you. The professors are there to help you. Basically, what you need to know if you go to a league challenge or a league cup, you need to make sure you fill out your deck list. So that way we know that you have a 60 card legal deck that has no cards that are not legal. And you'll turn that in, you'll pay for your entry. You'll make sure that your sleeves are all good, because you don't want to have any sleeves that are questionable, maybe what they call marked cards. And sometimes you don't know that, and most of the time the judges will look through your cards to make sure that your sleeves are all good. Another thing is just to know the professors will explain all of this beforehand, but they will explain how long the matches are going to be, if it's a best of 1, if it's a best of 3, and how many rounds. And that's something that you definitely need to be aware of. Challenges are typically shorter than cups because you don't have the top cut, whereas cups go a little bit longer. So if you're planning your day around this, you need to just be aware of how long you're going to be there.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely feel free to reach out to those local professors who are hosting that event beforehand if you want to get a good idea about what you should bring, what should be expected, how long do they think the tournament's going to go for, what the format's going to be. One thing that we didn't cover is that everything within the championship series is played in what's called the standard format. So the standard format, it goes off of the card sets. And there's like a little
Regulation mark.
Right, thank you. Regulation marker at the bottom of a card. So currently for the 2026 season where we're at right now, we were playing G, H, and I are the 3 regulation sets that are legal for standard format. That means that everything before F and before is not legal. So luckily for us, with Scarlet and Violet, came out with the silver borders. So it's really easy to say, okay, yellow borders are banned, right? So don't play any yellow bordered cards in your deck currently, because that's the standard format. So that should be the format you expect. But definitely what Ashley was saying, best of 1, so you're only playing 1 game. Best of 3, so that's the best 2 out of 3 with your competitor as well. It really depends on how you play and all those kind of different things. But also knowing what to bring. You have to bring your deck list, as Ashley mentioned. Bring your dice. So that your damage counters and all those kind of things in some way that you can flip a coin for those special conditions, and also figuring out who goes first and second. Not only sleeve your deck, which is recommended, it is not required. You can play without sleeves, but you have to make sure your cards are in pristine condition. If there's any white around the edges, we consider marked cards. So we would definitely recommend sleeving your deck. And if you sleeve your deck, definitely bring those extra sleeves with you too, because you never know when you're going to split a sleeve or something like that, and you can change it out right away. I think the most important thing ever is to bring a positive attitude.
Yes, that is one of the most important things, is to have a positive attitude.
Yeah, for sure, because at the end of the day, you're there to have fun. I think I always try to remind our players, like, hey, we're all playing a 6-year-old card game.
Yes.
Right? So our card game for 6-year-olds. So remember that as you play. Yes, we are being competitive. Yes, we want to do the best. Yes, we want to earn those points, earn our way up towards the world championships. But if you're not having fun, then why are you doing it? So just bring that positive attitude about it. And I will guarantee you, no matter where you place, you will have fun when you play those events.
Exactly. And there's a lot of people, like, whenever you are first starting to play, it is really difficult to lose match after match after match. But if you have that positive attitude and go into it as, even if I'm losing, if I learn something, that makes this worth it. Because I mean, we had one local that they played in something and they lost every single round, but they said, you know what, I don't care, I'm just here to have fun and I'm learning something. So that is the best thing to have, is a positive attitude.
For sure. And it reminds me of my first time that I competed in a cup, because I was playing the card game for a while, but I never played competitively ever. So that was the first time I had my competitive experience, was going to a cup in another city. I went with a friend of mine, and I went in there and I played, and it was best of 1, and I lost round after round after round. Kind of like, I felt it a little bit every single time, like a little bit more of my spirit of playing this game was getting chipped away as I progressed further and further down the tables. And then finally, I think on my last match or second last match, I played the cup out, because I said, you know what, I paid for my entry fee. I'm gonna play all these games of Pokemon, and I decided to do that. And finally, I matched up with a very positive junior who like blew me away because his attitude was so great. I sat down across from him. He immediately, introduced himself, said hi, wanted to talk about Pokemon, wanted to talk about different things. And he really boosted my spirits, funny enough, that he had such a great attitude about everything. And really I could tell he really enjoyed playing and talking to other players. And I was like, this is what it's all about. If this kid can have this much fun, it's okay for me to lose this event, because it's going to happen. You're going to lose games. It's about learning from those losses, and it's about learning how to be a better player. But always, if you keep that positive attitude, those things will come with it.
Mm-hmm. And even like your pro players that play a lot and they top regionals and internationals, I mean, when they first started playing, I guarantee you that they were in the same boat, that they lost a lot too. But the difference is they persevered through all those losses and they made their way with a positive attitude and was like, you know what, I'm just going to learn from this and I'm going to improve every single time. And that's really the goal, is to have fun and improve every single time.
For sure. Yeah. So, hey, we talked about where you go to start your competitive journey, right? To start your Pokemon journey, leaving Pallet Town, go find your challenges and cups, and start playing in those. But now we got to talk a little bit about the format itself, right? So we talked about a little bit about what standard format is. But let's talk a little bit about meta, right? If maybe it might be a little new word for you if you never heard it before. It's short for metagame, but it's pretty much it stands for playing the most popular, powerful decks being played right now. So a player once told me, meta stands for most effective tactic available. Right. So, and that's a good way to remember it. So it's kind of understanding what decks are at the top right now, who's doing well, or what decks are doing well at this current stage of the format, and then kind of wrapping your brain around those. So Ashley, like, how do you take the meta and how do you look at that? And how does that make the decision for you about what deck you should play?
So I typically kind of look at Limitless TCG for the top decks. I watch the regionals to see what are the top 8 decks, and I kind of make my decision on, hey, does this sound like it's going to be a good fit for me? Because there are different like archetypes that may work for me, but it may not work for you, and vice versa. So that's typically what I do. And then I also like to build my own. So I like to build non-meta decks, which I think sometimes help whenever I do play meta decks, because I put myself in more difficult situations to improve my meta decks.
Yeah.
So
For sure. And that's definitely a great way to go about it, right? It's getting that information. Like you mentioned, going to LimitlessTCG.com. That's a great website. It's actually created by just another competitor in the format and puts that whole thing together, collects all the information from different tournaments going on worldwide, puts them onto one site. You can see what the deck list, not only what deck lists are for tournaments that have completed, but for like regionals, special championships, and all those kind of things. But he also, it also compiles all that information into data. So you can look at specific archetypes. Like, let's talk about Gardevoir, for example, which a lot of people think is the best deck in the format right now. It'll tell you exactly per percentage how many of each card do they play and who play, like what successful decks play those cards. So having all that information now is super awesome. But that can help you kind of understand what deck list you should start out with. I think you mentioned something really cool, actually, is that you like to build your own decks, and you use that information to kind of help you get better at the game itself. And that's definitely a great way to enjoy the game. A lot of people like to say, hey, you know what? I like to put my own decks together. I like to play with my favorite Pokemon. I'm going to figure out what's the best way to do that. A lot of times, though, when starting out, it's okay to look at a top deck, pick the same 60, and just play that deck as well. But it's also about what works best for you as a player. What do you understand? Because there's a lot of decks that are very confusing. I can look at a Pidgeot control deck, and I will literally think I'm reading hieroglyphics. There's so many different cards in that deck, and they all each do a specific thing to counter a specific type of deck, that it gets to be really complicated. So you really have to understand the meta, how each of the other decks work to be able to play that type of deck. So if that's your kind of play style, that might be the way you want to go. There's also turbo decks, which are big beat sticks that just go out there and
very, very fast.
Very, very fast, get set up, and then start just attacking with super massive damage. And they're like, hey, stop me from doing this, right? And those are awesome decks, a lot of time for beginners too, because it's not, they're very linear. There's not a lot of complicated strategy to them. It's set up, do big numbers, take prizes, and keep going forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also damage manipulation decks, which have come to the forefront of the meta, I think, especially with certain cards like Monkey Dory and Dragapult EX, both being able to shoot over damage counters to your opponent's bench, be able to help you take those extra prize cards or set up big 3, 4, 5, even 6 prize turns to really help you out. But those are also a little bit more complicated, a little bit more math is involved. So definitely check out those different deck types and figure out which one works best for your playstyle, where you're at currently, and where you want to go. So as we talked about that, we talked about how certain things change. Explain to us, Ashley, how does the meta shift between sets and formats?
So the meta shifts pretty much every single time that Pokemon comes out with a new set, because there's going to be new cards. Sometimes they help decks that haven't been in the top like 8 decks, and sometimes it just takes that one card to make a deck really, really good. And then other times it makes other decks that were at the top kind of fall down a little bit because this other deck went up, so they went down. And so it just kind of switches every single time. So you need to make sure that you're staying a little bit ahead of the game if you want to be competitive. Look at websites like Justin Basil ahead of time, so you know that when the Japanese cards come out, when our English cards come out, you already know what that does and how you can fit it into one of your meta decks or even a non-meta deck. But knowing that kind of stuff, it helps you make your decision on what kind of deck you're going to play. And you can also look at the Japan tournament list, because they always get their cards before us. They have a little bit more time than us. So you can always look at that and see how they're going. Just be aware that their formats are a little bit different, so how they play is not always exactly like us. So what their top 8 may be a little bit different, but you can still kind of use it as a resource to look and see what kind of deck that you want to play.
Yeah, for sure, because they get the cards 3 months before us. So they actually get a little while with those new cards, and it kind of helps us out because we can see what's being effective over there. And kind of looking at, okay, this is how Raging Bolt EX is now working, right? I think that's how everybody kind of jumped into the knockdowns with Raging Bolt, because Japan was doing that when they came out first, and kind of just blew up that archetype and made it super huge. So those are great things. But as you mentioned, right, Japan's tournaments are also a different, I want to say like setup than ours. They do best of one. There's no ties. And they're able to change decks on day 2. So those change the way they build decks a little bit. But definitely, so take the results with a grain of salt. But definitely a great starting point to figure out what kind of cards are making what decks more effective. All right, so we found a deck that we liked from a tournament, and we're ready to build it. I want to build it. I want to practice with it. How should we go about that, Ashley?
The biggest thing I would say, honestly, is just going to like LimitlessTCG. Is you can go there and it has a bunch of different deck lists for the top decks. You can click on it and it'll have a bunch of different players that have topped. You can click whichever list you want and it'll tell you exactly how many cards it has. You don't have to play. If they have a gold one, you don't have to play the gold one. You just have to play that copy of it if you want to. And feel free to like switch 1 or 2 cards out, because a lot of players, that's exactly what they do. Don't feel like you have to play that exact 60, because at the end of the day, you're still playing in your locals, and what works for your locals may not work for regionals and vice versa.
Yeah, for sure. And another cool thing about LimitlessTCG is that when you're looking at a deck list, they actually give you a couple options. One of the great ones is copy to your clipboard. That's always a great thing, because you just click right there. It copies it to your clipboard on your computer or on your phone. And you can go to Pokémon TCG Live, which is the official Pokemon trading card game app, where you can actually import that list, create it in there, buy the cards you need from the online currency, and you're able to test with that deck right then and there at your computer from your phone, and be able to try it out and see what kind of little tweaks you can make it a little bit more your own, or maybe make it a little bit more easier for you to play, or a little bit more to your play style. And that's a great way to try to test out these new decks without having to go out and go try to find all these different cards, right? Because there are a lot of cards that could cost you a little bit, depending on what card it is. And then also too, like, you can also, from that LimitlessTCG, you can also tell it to print out proxies. What proxies are is just, you're able to print out the card on your own printer, and be able to put it into a deck to be able to practice with. Those proxies are not legal for a format or for championship series play, but those proxies are there to help you once again play with it in real life against somebody else and see how that plays, because playing from the app to real life can definitely be a big change, especially when you're playing a new deck, because TCG Live does do a lot of the actions for you automatically, where you have to remember to do it in real life. A great example is if you've ever played Marnie's Grimmsnarl EX, you're playing with Frostlass. Frostlass's ability is Freezing Shroud. In between a Pokemon checkup, every Pokemon that has an ability except for Frostlass gets 10 damage counters put onto them. So TCG Live does that for you automatically. In your real life game, you have to remember after you attack or after your opponent attacks to mention Freezing Shroud and make sure everybody ticks up their damage counters 1 on everybody that has an ability. So just get it. I would also recommend, once you played on live, you found a deck you liked on live, play it in real life, practice with it with somebody, and get those mechanics down as well for muscle memory.
And we typically use a lot of the proxies too for decks that maybe our players don't actually play. A lot of the times I know that we've built like the Raging Bolt deck because at the time nobody was playing it. We've built different ones, and those are very, very good resources to use, because you can just print out a proxy, take it, put it on an energy card and stick it in a sleeve, and it's going to have the same thickness as a regular card. So it's just like you're playing a regular deck.
For sure. And also too, as we're talking about getting these deck lists and tweaking them to be yourselves, there's nothing wrong with just taking the 60 from that tournament result on LimitlessTCG, copying those straight 60 cards and playing those straight 60 cards. They have proven results right there on LimitlessTCG. You can see they're doing well, that they've been topping tournaments. So it's totally okay if you're not comfortable with knowing what to change as far as a tech card, which is a card that you're going to put into your deck specifically to help you with a certain matchup or a certain situation. If you're not comfortable with knowing those or understanding how those work or what card you should change out, just play the same 60 and it's totally fine. But definitely make sure you're doing those things as you're looking at those decks and getting ready to play competitively.
And another thing that I would suggest is, if it is one of the top decks, search up some YouTube videos of like past regionals. Like if you find the list on that regional, go back to the stream that Pokemon put up and watch how they play the deck, because some people learn by actually doing it. So if you watch somebody else do it, I mean, that's how I learned some of the decks. There was, on my first competitive season, I forgot my deck at home and I was an hour away, and I was like, well, okay, I guess I won't play in this cup, but they needed one more person. So all the locals were like, hey, we've got all these decks, come here. And I ended up borrowing somebody's Miraidon deck, and I only knew it because I knew how to play it because I had watched those streams. So those are very, very good resources to watch. Other players play the decks too, so you know how it functions, because you may look at the deck list and you're like, okay, these are cool, but how does it work? So being able to see that live, it gives you an idea of how to play that deck too.
For sure. And it also helps you figure out different lines and different matchups, like exactly, hey, what kind of strategy should I have playing those different matchups as you watch them on stream. So that's definitely a great point to make, Ashley. I appreciate that so much. And it's true. Like, we live now in the day where there's so much information online to help you out to become a better competitive player. So use those tools to the best of your advantage, right? Mm-hmm. Using YouTube, using X to see what other competitors have put up for their deck lists and kind of what they're talking about currently, and viewing other media sites as well, like LimitlessTCG, once again, putting all this data up there for you to learn all these different things. So it's definitely awesome. So now we know what we're doing. We know where we're going. We played in some league cups and challenges. We've been doing pretty well. We have our favorite deck. Now we're ready to step it up and go to regionals, internationals. So Ashley, what are some tips that you have for our listeners for them to prepare for their first regionals or internationals, and what should they do to prepare to go to one?
So one of the very first things that I would suggest you do is get on rk9.gg. That is the website that Pokemon uses for all of the regionals, the internationals, the special events, how you sign up for them. So if you have your player ID, which I would assume that you would probably already have that, make sure that you go in there and create your account. Make sure and double check that your email and your player ID are correct. Because if they're not, then you're going to have to also get in touch with support, and it's a big old thing. And that's something that they tell you, make sure that everything is correct before you actually do this. So now that you're done that, once all of the regionals are announced, they will typically announce like, hey, when the signups are going to be. It's typically 2 months before an event happens. So if a regional happens in, let's say, December, typically they'll put out the sign up in October. So it gives you a couple months to kind of prepare for that. And then figure out, once you're signed up, how are you going to get there? Where are you going to stay? How are you going to pay for your meals? That kind of stuff. And it gives you extra time to kind of save up for that.
Yeah, for sure. And then also too, finding out when those signups happen, championships.pokemon.com. Now you can go to that website, go to the events, and you can actually see for each individual event, whichever one you want to attend, they'll put all the information on there for you about when the signup is. And I would highly recommend you get onto rk9.gg beforehand, create your account, and then when that day and time comes up, you log in at least 10 minutes before. So that way you're already on the website, you're ready to go. So that way, right when it hits the time on the dot, you can click sign up and get in, because they do fill up extremely fast, especially the Masters division. So if you're going to play, I would recommend getting on beforehand and signing up right away on day one at that first moment. And if you're a Poke parent like me and you have kids who are also going to play, sign yourself up first in the Masters, and then you can go back and sign them up in the juniors and seniors divisions, because they don't fill up as fast. So that way you can make sure they get in as well. But also with that, once you sign up and you get the, hey, you're in, now it's really kind of time to lock on those travel logistics, making sure you know where you're going to stay. So, I mean, I've stayed in Airbnbs every time I go to any kind of regional or international. I think that worked out really well for me and my family, and also for being able to share those Airbnbs with other players that are in our area. We kind of like can save some money by splitting up the cost of those Airbnbs, and we all stay in the same place. And then it gives us a place to be able to practice, be able to kind of get in that last minute deck changes and deck ideas, and to kind of practice a little bit of the matchups before we actually go attend these regionals. And so, actually, let me ask you, before you go to a regional or international, do you try to go there and make it there the day of, or do you try to give yourself a little bit of time beforehand to kind of like get in the right headspace to go compete?
For me personally, I always enjoy going the day before it starts, because it gives you plenty of time to get down there. Then you're not so tired whenever the regional is actually happening. And then it just kind of gives you some time to decompress, think about other things, and kind of bring yourself to get prepped for the regional. And then that way you're not trying to rush around, because I know some people, they fly and sometimes their flights get canceled or they get delayed, and sometimes they're not getting there until the morning of. And for me personally, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I would be in such a panic, like, oh, I can't do this. So I personally like going there beforehand, at least a day. If your schedule allows it, that's what I would suggest doing.
Yeah,
because it's fun.
Yeah, for sure. And it's cool too to come in. You come in the day before, they're set up. You can go in and check, because you have to check in. So you have to give them your player ID. They have to make sure you're registered, and they give you your competitive kit. Whether like at regionals is usually just a playmat and a promo card. If you go to ICs, they give you a little bit more. And like ICs are a little bit more set up to help you check in a little bit faster, I think. But there's more people playing, so it is take you a little bit longer, right? But it also gives you that extra day to get a lay of the land, right? About the area where you're playing at, where are the tables where everybody's gonna play at. And then also kind of give you a good idea about maybe you travel with a group and you want to be like, hey, every time in between rounds, let's meet up over here.
Yes, that is actually very, very helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Because about going to these regionals and internationals, hey, if you can go and on your own and go and handle that, that's great. But sometimes it's really awesome too to go with a group, go with other competitors that you made friends along the way in your local journeys. A lot of them are trying to go to the same kind of events that you're going to, and all go together and then be able to keep up with each other in between rounds, meet up, have a friendly face as you can see, and be like, hey, how are you doing? Are you all right? And boost each other up, you know, or hype each other up too. Maybe somebody's doing really well, hype them up to keep going. If somebody's not doing so great, hey, boost them and be like, hey, it's all right. Shake it off. Let's go to the next round and let's do it. You know, we know we got this. So definitely having those key points to meet up at is great. And then also too, as a competitor, every time I go to regionals or internationals, I love going to go visit the vendors, to go see what kind of cards I can get. Some Pokemon products I can get out there. One thing my kids love is to go visit all the stuffy vendors and go look at all the different stuffies they bring from Japan over to us, and to increase their collection. So definitely gives you that time to do that without having to rush around or think, oh, I'm going to miss this because I'm competing and I can't get to it. But yeah, I totally agree. Getting there the day before is the best thing you can do to help you kind of make sure everything goes as smoothly as possible, to check in and all that kind of good stuff.
And if you do want to shop, going to the vendors, getting there the day before actually helps out a lot too, because it's super, super packed once they open the doors and you go in there. Everybody's like, oh, okay, let's go to the vendors. So it gives you plenty of time to look around, because whenever you're competing, you're not going to have a whole lot of time unless your opponent doesn't show up and you have like that whole round to actually go look when there's not a whole lot of people over there.
Yeah, for sure. And let's talk about some packing tips, right? We're going to get ready to go on this trip. We already talked about for league cups and challenges, you should bring some sleeves. You should bring your dice. You should bring a play mat. What other things for regionals should you pack separate, a little bit more extra than you do for challenges and cups?
So whenever I first started competing, I asked some of the locals, because some of them have actually been to regionals at this point and I had not. And I asked them, hey, what are some things that you would recommend me taking to the regional just to make sure? And one of the biggest things that they said was to bring like a water bottle, because most of the venues will have water fill-up stations because you need to stay hydrated. So make sure you bring a water bottle. I would suggest bringing snacks, because especially if you're a master, we don't always get lunch breaks. And so you can get hangry throughout the day.
Yep, that's for sure.
I always make sure that I have at least a couple protein bars, maybe some gummies, or like some beef jerky or something small. So in between rounds, if I only have 5 minutes, I can still get something in my stomach. And another thing is just making sure that you have a great attitude, because having a great attitude makes your journey throughout the regionals a lot better and a lot more enjoyable if you're not completely down in the dumps if you've been losing. Something else I would also suggest bringing is just like maybe like a little first aid kit, because they will probably have those, but it's always good to have those on yourself too.
Yeah, for sure. And especially for specific things that you may need to handle allergies, EpiPens and stuff like that you need specifically. You gotta have it on hand. So definitely great packing tips, Ashley. And I totally agree with you about the great attitude, right? One thing I would recommend, if you signed up for that regionals, internationals, and maybe let's say you go 0-3 in the very first start, right? That may kick you out of day 2, and it might put you in the dumps. You may think, oh, I don't know if I want to keep playing or not. If you are being serious about being a TCG competitor, I would recommend to play out the rest of the rounds. Because maybe you're not making day 2 at this regional, but this is a great opportunity for you to play other players that you don't normally play at your league challenges and cups, see other decks that you don't normally get to see, and really test yourself out against all those players. You got, most of the time, 9 rounds to play and try to get better, try to learn some different tips. And who knows, maybe after that 0-3 start, you figured out some things and you're able to go 4-3. Doesn't get you into day 2, but may qualify you for some points on the very end of regionals. So don't stop yourself from being able to earn the very best you can or get in as much practice as possible. I hope you're picking that up while we're talking about this podcast, that practice is very important. If you want to get good at Pokemon, you have to play Pokemon, right?
There's a lot of pro players that have started like 0 and 2 and then won all the way out too. So you never know. It really just depends on how you play, how your opponent plays. You could start out really bad and do really good the rest of the time, or vice versa. You could start out really good and then lose a couple. But either way, you should not give up at all.
For sure. And I think something that we didn't talk about with challenges and cups is that, yes, it's a small local environment. You may know those players, so it may not be as uncomfortable for you, but you're still you're competing, right? You're probably going to have nerves about competing in those local events. Or even like, hey, I'm playing against somebody. I don't think that's how a card works. Or I don't think you did that calculation right for damage.
Judge.
Exactly. Making that judge call, right? And knowing and understanding that it's not anything personal against the other person. It's about keeping the integrity of the tournament and making sure that the rules are being followed precisely. That's why it's very important to read those rule books, understand how cards work, and getting comfortable with it at your locals to call over that judge to help you out with those kind of situations. Because now in a regional event, it's going to be a lot bigger, a lot more a lot crazier. And there's going to be a whole bunch of different professors walking around and judges around the area specifically for those events. And so how do you handle those nerves, and how do you handle that kind of, hey, should I call judge here or not? And how do you do that, Ashley?
So typically for me, before the rounds even start, I usually bring some headphones and I'll put on some like really uplifting, let's go, get this music.
Pokemon theme song.
Yes, the Pokemon theme song. Some of their Worlds tracks. There's one, Immortalized. That's one of my favorite ones.
Oh, yeah,
I've been listening to that a lot before rounds. So that's what I typically do to hype myself up. Now for like during the rounds, if I'm not sure, and I've done it before, I've had to call judge because I went to go play. This was around the time that Crispin was brand new, and I played it, and then I only had one energy, and I was like, oh, I think I might have played that wrong. Let's make sure. And my opponent said the same thing. Yeah, let's just double check. So we called the judge, had them come over. They explained if you only have one, it has to go to your hand because that's what it says first. And so I learned from that. But I know that sometimes it is really nerve-wracking to have to call the judge. And I had to call a judge at NAIC because my opponent shuffled, went to go search with the Artisan with a full bench, and I stopped them. But then they ended up shuffling their hand into their deck to do something else, and it was irreversible.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad, but at the same time, like, I know that if I would have let that go, it compromises the integrity of the tournament and me as a player too. And even though I could tell that my opponent was visibly upset, they completely understood. They said, you know what, I messed up and that's okay. And sometimes you're going to have the people that are going to be 100% okay with calling a judge. And then there's other times where you're going to have the ones that kind of try to fight back that I've seen. But that's what the judges are there for. They're there to make sure that the rules get put in place, that people are making sure that they're not causing conflict too much. That's what they're there for. So don't be afraid to call them.
For sure, 100%. I mean, that's what we are trained to do as professors and as judges, is to handle those things. So you as a player, don't put yourself in that situation where you are trying to argue a ruling or how a game should be played or anything like that. Call judge, let the judge do their job and do those things for you. And I think a good way to know when things kind of go awry is playing that deck you know well, right? We went back to the very beginning, talking about finding a deck that works for you, testing out that deck, playing it well, and knowing those things. Don't second guess yourself the night before regional or international and go, hey, you know what? I've been playing Gardevoir for the past month, but I really think that Joltik is the play. I need to play Joltik box, and I never played it before, but I'm going to switch over tonight. Don't do those things yourself because it is very tempting to do, though. You want to do the very best you can. You're seeing all the stuff from social media or other points on the web about what's going to do well, what's the meta call for this regional. I think, especially starting out, meta calls are not that important as much as understanding the deck you're going to play.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a deck that you played very well, and maybe it's not a top tier deck, but being the better player with that deck and knowing that what your deck can do and knowing how to get around different situations will make a ton of difference than trying to play the BDIF, the best deck in format, the night before when never playing it before.
Exactly.
If you felt that that was the best deck, now I should suggest that you should have played it a couple weeks before that regional then.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But you play the deck you're playing because you're comfortable with it. You know it well. You know what you're doing with it, and you feel confident with it. Don't lose that confidence in yourself the day before. Take it with you. Put it in there. You know, hey, Ash has always brought Pikachu with him for 25 years, right? He was trying to win that. He was trying to win the Elite Four and be the top of the world. And he never changed Pikachu because he felt comfortable with Pikachu. And look where it got him. 25 years later, and he wins, right?
Hey, sometimes it takes a while to get there. But
exactly.
It's definitely worth it whenever you do.
Exactly. So, and then with that too, as you mentioned, Ashley, right? You play music before each round to kind of get you right in the right headspace to play. Be mentally present in every match, because that's really what's going to make the difference too. Is that you're locked in, you're playing those matches, you're seeing what's going on, you're being aware, and you're being attentive, right? It's very distracting being at a regional international. There's so many people, so many things going on. You have people to the left and right of you, shoulder to shoulder, playing these games. There's streams getting put up on jumbo screens for everybody to see in the venue. There's a lot of noise, a lot of talks, a lot of conversations. So it can be really distracting. But you need to be mentally present in your game because you never know what's going to happen, and you need to be able to be aware, be attentive, you know what's going on.
And that's why I always make sure that I have snacks too, because I know for me, like if I get a little too hungry, I am not focused to save my life.
For sure.
So knowing what helps you focus is also good to know.
We've talked about, you know, hey, playing at regionals, internationals, how to handle the stress, how to handle fatigue, what are some kind of good tips. But let's talk about all the stuff in between, right? In between our challenges, in between our cups, in between our regionals, in between our internationals, we're practicing playing Pokemon. There's a player out there, Azul GG, always says, if you want to get better at Pokemon, play Pokemon, right? Play as much Pokemon as you can in quality time. Let's talk a little bit about practice and how you can get that in. Finding a testing group with friends and joining other online events to help you kind of level up your game. So where should we start with that, Ashley?
So talk to your local people first. I mean, that's what we do. Our league meets twice a week on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and we're always playing. And even during the week, like some of us are, hey, you want to jump on live, play a game? And sometimes we have time, sometimes we don't, but trying to keep that consistency of playing either every day. If you really want to be competitive, you really need to be playing pretty much every day. If you want to be just kind of competitive, maybe play 2 or 3 times a week. If you're just kind of in it to have fun, just do it once. But if you want to be one of the top players and you want to try and top a regional, you really need to be practicing consistently, because the more you do something, the better you get at it. Just like learning a language or learning the alphabet whenever you were in elementary school. You didn't learn that just by doing it one time and being perfect at it. You had to draw your A's 60 different times in a row. And the same thing goes with Pokemon. You just have to continuously do it.
Yeah, for sure. And practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. So be aware of the quality of practice you're getting in, right? Definitely there's a 2 different camps of, I think, Pokemon players. When we talk about playing online on TCG Live and then playing in real life, which one's better? Which one's better for you to become a better competitive player? You know, there's a lot of players that believe that playing in real life is the only way to get better at playing Pokemon TCG and becoming a top competitor. But we're starting to see now there's a lot of competitive players who are coming from TCG Live and play majority on TCG Live. So I think it's that quality of practice that needs to be put into play. So if you're going to play on live, I would recommend you climb that ladder. climb that elo up to Arceus rank, try to get to 17, 18, 1900 ELO. And when you get up there, if you can get up there, and when you get up there, you're going to be playing a lot of quality matches with a lot of top tier players. So that way it can really test your limits, test your skills, and improve your game. But playing against somebody online that you don't get to talk to can only get you so far. And I think a big thing that a lot of competitors who play just locally miss out on is actually practice testing. Playing a test game is different than playing a game that you're trying to win, right? I think that's where a lot of times it's confusing for players, because you think that, well, if I sit across from somebody, I should just play to win. And then that'll make me better. Not always the case. If you play a practice game where the outcome of the game isn't about winning or losing, it's about playing the most perfect game of Pokemon you can. And what that means is, playing out your hand and maybe saying, hey, I'm not sure. Do you think this is the best play for me to do? And having that input from your opponent to be like, yeah, I think that might be the best play. Or no, because if you do that, then I'm able to boss kill you and end the game. So be careful with that play, right? It's about learning those lines, those matchups, those sequences you need to learn to play your most perfect game of Pokemon. And that should go both ways. So there's a lot of different ways to have those practice games. You can play open-handed, where you both know what each other has in each other's hand, but then you play like you don't have that extra knowledge, which sometimes can be difficult, but it helps you kind of do those things. Or you can play a game where you're just playing like normal, but then when you have that instance where you're like, should I do this? Is this the best play for me at this time? Then that's when you kind of break it down and say, hey, let me try this out. I'm going to play Ultra Ball. I'm going to get this Pokemon. I'm going to do the sequencing. Oh, it only put me here. Let me rewind this a little bit. Let me try this. Let me try this instead. This is the other thing I had in mind. And then getting that feedback back and forth to kind of really understand which is the best play at that certain situation. And another way you can kind of practice as well is to play some online tournaments. You're gonna hear this website a lot, LimitlessTCG.com. They actually have a section where you can join online events. There's tons of events hosted every single day. You can join for free, but you're also, once again, playing in kind of like a tournament environment, and you're playing against people who are taking it maybe a little bit more seriously and at the lower ranks on TCG Live. What other tips do you have for our listeners for how they should practice and how they should make the best of their time that they have?
So one thing that one of my old local groups, whenever I lived elsewhere and they were my locals at the time, what they did was they have a Discord for that area, so it has all the local players in there. And one of the players came up with a 3v3 tournament. That was like one of the most fun tournaments that I've ever played in, because we played it on live, but we each had our own section in the Discord where our team could get together and we helped each other out. And doing that kind of stuff, it's the same concept as playing open hand, but you're playing with your teammates. So you have more than one brain giving you, hey, you should do this, or hey, you shouldn't do that because of this. Because it just gives you some extra practice and some outside source, because sometimes you don't always see the line of play. Sometimes you want to do this, but then they say, oh, wait, don't do that. I see this better line where you could take like 3 prizes, whereas you only saw 1.
Yeah.
It's good to have that outside source.
Yeah, for sure. And then once you start playing with those players, you can start creating like testing groups, start getting together, test in real life, test online, and get comfortable with those players and kind of share ideas for deck lists and tips and strategies and things like that. So those are awesome. And another great way to kind of get some practice in and get kind of level up your gameplay is now that there's Metafy. I believe it's metafy.gg. To play, to get coaching, and maybe even purchase some classes from top level competitors and what they think on a certain deck or certain archetype, and like get their thoughts. So coaching, really, you can do one-on-one sessions, and you can go on Metafy and find anybody you want to who maybe plays the same deck you do, or maybe you just want to hear their insights on a certain archetype and get that coaching one-on-one time with them, to kind of get that understanding of that deck, understanding some matchups, and maybe just learn some new things. Maybe like pick their brain and figure out, how do you get ready for regional? How, like, what do you recommend that I do to change up my practice time to get the most out of it, and to get that insight? Because there's no better way to learn than from somebody who's already doing it.
Exactly.
Right. And once again, too, those classes are really great about those different archetypes, because it's one-time video, so you can attend usually live. You want to ask your questions right away about a certain deck archetype to those players, and get your answers back real time. But you can also play it back too. A lot of times they give you the video recording as well. And you can always play it back, go back and like as you're playing and practicing, you can be like, wait a minute, they said to do this in this certain situations. Let me try that. Am I understanding what they're talking about here? Let me just watch this one more time. You can do those things, and that's another way you can definitely level up your play.
And having the access to those classes is very, very nice, because like for us, we don't have a huge community, so we just have a couple different decks. And so for me, like whenever I was prepping for NAIC, I had picked up Gardevoir, and I'd been playing it for a couple months, but I wasn't for sure on some of the matchups because I don't run into those matchups. So I went on Metafy and I purchased one of the Gardevoir classes, and I looked to see, hey, what are they saying about this specific matchup? So it's also a good way to prep yourself if you're not used to those type of matchups too.
For sure, definitely. And they do cover a lot of the meta matchups, so they can really help you like understand how to play through those. So it's a good time, and actually, and I haven't met any competitive player that has denied answering a question that I had about those different things off those classes or off those coaching sessions. So really awesome community out there, and I think that's what it's about. I think leveling up each other is great, because then we just get more competition and have more fun playing Pokemon. So I think that's awesome. But I think we covered it all, Ashley. We talked about what you should do from the very beginning. Get your Pokemon player ID. Find your group, and get your practice in. Find those deck lists on LimitlessTCG.com, and play with them on TCG Live. Climb the ladder, get up to a high elo, and find your community, find your group that's going to help you become the very best, like no one ever was. Do you have any parting tips or anything for our listeners, Ashley?
Just sometimes competitive Pokemon can seem intimidating, but it is definitely one of the most fun and welcoming communities out there.
For sure, 100%. And like we've said in a lot of our episodes already, you're not doing this alone. There's always going to be somebody maybe following the same journey that you have. And it's about finding your community, finding those people, knowing that there's other people out there who are there willing to help. And hopefully you got that from this podcast. So if you are starting your TCG competitive journey and you got questions and you want to know who you should ask, feel free to send them to us, right? Send us your questions. Send us what you want us to talk about. Send us what you think we should cover on our next episode of TM Talk. So reach out to us on tmtalkpodcast@gmail.com. We really want to look forward to answering your guys' questions, replying back to your emails, and getting your guys' feedback. So let us know how we're doing and how hopefully we're helping you out, and how can we if we're not. So thanks so much for listening to TM Talk, and it's really great having you here, and we're looking forward to talk to you next time.
We'll see you guys next time.
You just used TM Talk. I hope it was super effective for you. Whether you're building a deck or building a league, remember, you've got this and we've got your back.
If today's episode boosted your stats, share it with your party. And until next time, keep training, keep teaching, and keep passing that knowledge on.